What is going on, everybody? ZyoniK here, and in today's video, we're going to be using Clefable in the Ultra League, a Pokemon I have been very excited to try out because it can just put in work with the new fast move of Fairy Wind that it got this season, and the Ultra League meta is obviously a fantastic place for it. Now, a lot of you guys also have been wondering where my camera is. Well, my camera did break, and I'm looking to get another one soon, so that is why there is no video with me there. Alright, getting into the first battle, we have Cobalion on the lead versus Charizard. Okay, so this is obviously always a dicey matchup. We have access to Stone Edge, which will one-shot, and my opponent has access to Blast Burn. So this is obviously a game of chicken. And we're going to go ahead and go for the Sacred Sword Shield Bait after we built up to that Stone Edge. It's very important, especially for new battlers in here. You always want to build up to the energy of the charge move that is threatening, because your opponent is likely counting those fast moves. So I'm going to go ahead and shield, and it was just a Dragon Claw, and now they do a great swap into Cobalion to try to catch my Stone Edge, but thankfully I was prepared. So I'm going to go ahead and look to go for double Sacred Sword right here. Now, I do have a Jellicent in the back with Surf, so I'm not too concerned about swapping out to try to maintain this matchup. What I want to do is just get this Cobalion out of there. Now, my own Cobalion can actually survive this, so I want to save it for a sacrificial swap. So now I will swap into Jellicent and have a nice easy farm down with Hex. So let's see what decides to come back in. It is going to be probably the Charizard. Yeah, it is going to be the Charizard that does come back in. But again, we do have access to Surf, and we can put that pressure down right away. Surf was given to Jellicent last season, which I think is an amazing update for it. Before, you'd only really run with Shadow Ball and Bubble Beam. Maybe you'd mix in Ice Beam right there if there was a lot of Grass-type Pokemon. The Ultra League typically doesn't have it. Outside of Virizion is the most common. Sometimes we see Venusaurs, but Virizion is definitely the most common. Now, I am going to shield this next Dragon Claw right here just to maintain some health, because I feel like having 3 Pokemon, especially with some bulk here on Jellicent and Clefable for whatever their last Pokemon is going to be advantageous. And sure enough, it is going to be a Greedent. So we're going to go ahead and go for Surf here. Now, Greedent is it's a thick Pokemon. It's tough to get through. It does have access to Body Slam and Crunch as its charge moves. And obviously Crunch here is going to be doing super effective damage, but I'm not too concerned. I think the Clefable should be able to take this right here. We don't get to another Surf in time, unfortunately. And now I have my Cobalion as a safe swap if I need it on the Body Slams later on in this match. But I honestly don't think I will need it. I think 2 Meteor Mashes should be enough. Moonblast I don't think is going to be enough damage outright because of the bulk here on Greedent, so I'd rather go for 2 charge moves, even though Meteor Mash is not Stab, which is same type attack bonus, right? It's a Steel type move, but we are Fairy. So as you guys can see, these Body Slams are coming through, but we're absorbing them pretty well, and as long as we can get to 2 Meteor Mashes, which we do have right here, this should be a good game, very well played. And even then, we have a Cobalion with Double Kick as the fast move if double Meteor Mash is not enough. So this is gonna be a good game. Clefable right here, very tanky. Mine is not fully XL. I know it is 2494, but this was my Great League Clefable that you guys saw perform earlier in this season. That was 15-15-14 because I was planning to bring it up to the Ultra League. Now we do have a Golisopod here on the lead, which is it's a really cool Pokemon. It did get access to Liquidation this season, which can do quite a bit of damage, and I'm going to go ahead and respect that. And then now I'm going to look to catch Liquidation on my Jellicent. I'm going to obviously go for Stone Edge here. This does super effective damage because of that bug typing, so we do force a shield, and now I'm going to look to swap to catch the charge move. So we do catch it here. This is going to be heavily resisted. Even though they have access to Shadow Claw, this is perfectly fine for us, as we can soak that energy. They are going to go ahead and load up and then look to swap out now into a Snorlax. And again, we have access to Surf here. We're not really going to be winning this mid-game matchup because of the bulk there on Snorlax and the lick damage, but we can chip it down. Now, that Golisopod does have a bit of energy, so we got to be cognizant about that later on, but thankfully we can just keep going for Surfs right here. As this is looking to be, this is going to be a tough one because Snorlax obviously has access to Earthquake, to Superpower, to Body Slam, so it might just be able to commit to the full farm down, but they instead decide to pull the trigger here on a Body Slam to just chip us down, which is totally fine by me. I should be able to get to another Surf right here, and then we'll have to see if Cobalion can make quick work of it. But I decided to do a different approach. I'm thinking they're going to try to throw back-to-back superpowers. So I'm going to come in with Clefable right here, trying to soak that damage. Let's see if we get it. They actually swap out into a Steelix, which gives me proper alignment now. I can easily go for Sacred Swords here. I think that might have been a slight misplay on my opponent. They wanted to bank all of that energy. There is still a lot on the Snorlax, but ultimately, it gives me alignment, especially with the Steelix here. This is actually looking very good for us because I need to make sure I overcharge a bit. I know our defenses are dropping here, but I can overcharge a bit and go for these Sacred Swords, get a shield, look to go for another one, but they do get to another charge move. And this is the tough thing, is I decide to no-shield this. I decide to no-shield it, I can survive, and now I have to go for the final Sacred Sword in order to take them out. I was really hoping to have that extra health there, but this is looking okay. Now I'm going to swap right back out into Clefable as Golisopod is going to be coming in, and I think this might be the hardest hitting move left in the game. They've shown Body Slam. I'm guessing it's superpower on the Snorlax, so I'm going to shield the Liquidation and then look to go for Moonblast. And this is why Clefable is so good, is you got the bulk, you got the energy gain, you got the hard-hitting neutral moves in this meta. Obviously, we need to watch out for Steel-type Pokemon, which you'll see more of today. Trust me, there's plenty of Steel. But ultimately, Clefable has what it takes to really cover this meta. And this is what I love about it. And it's also why we're pairing it with Cobalion as our core, because Cobalion can handle those Steel-type Pokemon, right? So this is looking to be a good game as we farm down the Snorlax and go for a Meteor Mash here against the Golisopod to close this game out. So good battle to my opponent. But I think ultimately that locking themselves in with Steelix and Cobalion might have been tough right there. All right, we got Walrein here on the lead. Very good lead for us, and they decide to stay in. It's perfectly fine with me, but instead they swap out into Charizard. So you guys know what we're doing. Go straight for Stone Edge, and then we're going to swap out into Jellicent, but not today. Watch your earbuds. Boom! One shot's the Charizard, and they decide to surrender. I'm always going to boom you. If there's an opportunity, you're getting hit with it. Why? Because it's fun. All right, good game. We got a Grandbull now on the lead with Charm. So this is kind of a tough one. We're going to go ahead and go for Stone Edge here. We're going to want to do as much neutral damage as possible. We also want to keep Cobalion alive, so I will swap out. But now I'm going to go into Jellicent. Now I know Grandbull has access to Crunch. We're obviously going to be forced to shield, but I've gotten the Grandbull low enough now where my whole team could potentially handle it. And we draw out a Swampert here. So this is still a tough situation, but I want to go for Shadow Ball, try to get that early shield, or just put down the raw neutral damage like we can. And now I can safely go for Surfs. They're also deciding to go for Hydro Cannon here, which I thought was an interesting call instead of going for Earthquakes, because they're going to need 3 Hydro Cannons in order to take me out. Meanwhile, I can safely go for Surfs now because I landed that Shadow Ball, and we're going to be forcing those shields. So there's shield number 1. We now have an even shield game, which is I'm perfectly fine with. We're going to safely let this go. And then we're going to look to go for another Surf here. They will try to farm me down, so I go for Surf, and I overtapped. Oh my goodness, I was frustrated in this moment. I'm like, I could have gotten a free Surf right there, but I didn't. Instead, I got their energy, which I guess is a give and take here. So we're going to come in with Cobalion and look to go for Sacred Sword, and we don't get it either. This Swampert. And now I'm like, you know what, I have to trust in Clefable. I have to trust in Clefable in order to win. If there is a Grandbull and there is a Swampert, there is probably good odds that there is a Steel type in the back, but I have to trust in Clefable. And no! It's a Sceptile! And I'm happily surprised. I honestly thought if there was a Steel back there, right, a Registeel, it's over. You know it, I know it, right? But sometimes it's not. And sometimes you can come back. So we're going to go ahead and look to go for Moonblast right here. I'm hoping to get that attack debuff on my opponent, and we don't get it. So Sceptile now is about to freely hit me with an Earthquake, and this is going to be painful. I decided to shield the Leaf Blade because I thought they would just spam that, or maybe they had Dragon Claw Leaf Blade, was my thought. So Earthquake, we're actually able to hang on. Good job, Clefable. And now we can go for Moonblast here. And that does enough damage. Now, I want you guys to pay very close attention to what I'm about to do. I swap before the Charm comes through. This makes them think the game is over, and they don't attack, so I sneak through a fast move and get the Meteor Mash. They thought they just charmed me down. But I swapped out at the exact time the Charm was going to be coming through, so that I could sneak in that extra fast move. A little trick right there, a mind game to my opponent. They should have won, but good game. All right, we got Jellicent on the lead. I'm going to go ahead and swap into my own Jellicent. And for anyone wondering, no, there is no difference between the blue Jellicent and the pink Jellicent. It is just a color variation and a gender variation. But they are the same Pokemon with the same stats and same moves. They're all the same. So just use what you got. Blue or pink, doesn't matter. But in this matchup, we're going to be going for Surfs here against the Umbreon. That was a Jellicent lead on this one, I believe. Yeah, so we're going to be looking to soft lose this mid-game. I know having Jellicent against Cobalion and Umbreon against Jellicent does look tough, but it's all about getting energy, and I think we're going to be able to do that. So we're going to go ahead and go for a Surf here, and then we're going to come in and just load up with energy on Cobalion. Because if I have Stone Edges, I can do a lot of neutral damage against the Jellicent, and also, unless they have Psychic, which I'm guessing they don't, they're doing all resisted damage, Last Resort and Foul Play. Not too much, so I can easily fully farm this down. I will get over 100 energy, but I feel like having a Stone Edge and like very close to a second one, you can't have back-to-back Stone Edges because of the energy, as you guys can see right there, is a bit more advantageous than a little bit of extra health. So I'm going to go ahead and just go for Stone Edges right here. We're just going to apply that neutral damage, and let's see what we can do. We do decide that they do let that first one go through, so now I'm going to go for Sacred Sword. They let the first one go through, and my thought is they'll shield the second one, but they don't. So that was a mistake on me. I should just be going straight Stone Edges. And now I'm thinking maybe, let's read into the mind here, maybe they no-shielded because they have a better counter to Cobalion in the back, and they're not worried. So my thought was maybe there's an Obstagoon back there. Maybe there is an Obstagoon, Double Dark, right? Jellicent Double Dark. Maybe there's a Scrafty. So I'm trusting all shields into Clefable, and I'm just going to commit to this farm down. They are not swapping out. This is all positive information for me. I'm going to shield the potential Shadow Ball because I am reading Scrafty or Obstagoon. Let's see what it is. Was I right? No, I wasn't. It's a Melmetal. That is, you know, this is what I was talking about earlier. Sometimes you get the Sceptiles, sometimes you get the Obstagoons and Scrafties, and sometimes, well, you get the Steel. And we're going to see, I just wanted to see how much damage we're staying in this matchup. Technically, this is a loss, right? I should be backing out, but I wanted a damage test here. I wanted to see what Clefable, especially for you guys as well, so you can get an idea. If you face off against a Melmetal, you know, like, oh, Moonblast does about like 20%. That's actually very helpful information because there is going to be opportunities where a Moonblast could KO if the Melmetal is low enough, right? So we're going to go ahead and shield the next Rock Slide. We're going to go for another Moonblast, maybe hoping that this gets the debuff and then they can't land, the Rock Slide doesn't KO me, but ultimately Melmetal had 2 shields, and this is going to be a good game, very well played. But it's good to know that Clefable, even with resisted damage, can still do a good amount right there. So yeah, good battle to my opponent. They obviously had a really nice, hard triple lockdown on me. All right, we got Obstagoon here on the lead. This is a much more favorable matchup for us with Cobalion because of our damage. And they're deciding to stay in, which I thought was interesting. Now, they swap into Nidoqueen, so I'm going to go ahead and bring in that Jellicent. Obviously, a very positive matchup right here. We resist Poison with our Ghost typing, so these Poison Jabs and Poison Fangs aren't going to do anything. But one thing you do need to watch out for and don't get yourself caught with is them going for the Poison Fang right away, kind of lull you to sleep, and then hit you with an Earth Power. You don't want that to happen. So instead, I want to put the pressure back on them, because if I can get a shield, then I can easily take this matchup, mid-game matchup, and a shield advantage, but they instead decide to let it go and bring the Obstagoon back in. Totally fine with this. I have 2 fantastic answers on my back line, that being the Cobalion and the Clefable for Obstagoon. We're going to be resisting everything unless well, they just showed Obstruct, actually. So they probably have Obstruct Night Slash. So we are resisting all those charge moves right there if Cobalion takes super effective from Cross Chop, right? So we're going to go ahead and let these go through. It's just more Obstructs. And now this is a very interesting situation because with all the Obstructs coming up, this raises the defense of Obstagoon, which is going to make the fast moves with Double Kick here from Cobalion do nothing. So instead, I'm going to swap into Clefable right now and keep Jellicent with energy, just in case. Soak this Obstruct, and then load up on energy. And we do see a Weezing in the back. And this is what's cool about a Weezing, is that it's still weak to Meteor Mash. It is a poison fairy, so you'll love to see it. These Meteor Mashes put in a lot of work. Now, a lose con here for me is shielding a Brutal Swing, so I'm going to let it go, and it is a Brutal Swing. Cobalion could easily come in and win this game. I could just double shield the potential overheats from Weezing, but instead they're going for Brutal Swings right here, which is fine with me. I'm going to just keep throwing Meteor Mashes, and my trust was 2 shields into Cobalion to win this game, right? Because we can fast move down the Obstagoon, we could fast move down the Weezing, so we're going to go ahead and just look to go for another one. I think I decide to let I just decided to let this go. The Brutal Swing, we hang on with 1 HP in a dream. This Clefable, I'm telling you guys, and mine's not fully XL, right? You guys can see the IVs. It's a couple, I think it's like 41.5 or 42, but it's thick. If you guys can have a full juicy XL one, you guys are going to be happy, but this is going to be a good game. That was a beautiful dance of health, energy, shield, or non-shield usage. Either way, good game. All right, moving to the next one, we got Cobalion versus Zekrom, and I'm like, I love this Pokemon. It is so cool, and I rarely see it in the Ultra League, so let's see what we can do here. Obviously, we're resisting Dragon Breath and Sacred Sword to some nice neutral damage, but Wild Charges are gonna hurt, and I'm concerned that there might be a Steel in the back. Zekrom being very weak to Fairy-type Pokemon, Ice-type Pokemon, other dragons. Pairing it with a Steel makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to fully invest in my Cobalion in order to win this lead matchup, because I don't want to get caught with a maybe Galarian Stunfisk in the back, right? That I could easily come in with Cobalion and do some chip super effective damage with Sacred Sword. So they're going for back-to-back Wild Charges. I will double shield. We might be able to survive, but honestly, I don't want to risk it. I want to keep Cobalion healthy. There's a Sylveon, so we're going to go ahead and swap into Jellicent now as they decide to swap into Melmetal. So there's that Steel that we were talking about earlier, and we drew it out into the Jellicent, which is huge because now you guys start to see the potential of a Clefable. We have Meteor Mash for Sylveon. We have Moonblast for fighters and darks and dragons. The Meteor Mash as well does really nice against Walrein or any other ice-type Pokemon that you see. So this is looking to be a good game, as they're going to go ahead and just go for Rock Slides, but ultimately I know my win con here is with Clefable, and I kept the Cobalion alive just in case there was that Steel in the back, but we did draw it out with Jellicent. So this is going to be a good game. I can get to a Shadow Ball here in time. They're just going to farm me down, and they're probably hoping I have a Dark type in the back or something like that, but ultimately I have Clefable right here, which is a beautiful anchor on a lot of teams, especially if you can get the Steel out of the way, as some teams don't have double Steel, right? They'll only have one, and that Jellicent safe swap can really draw it out. Good game. Boom. Delayed boom. All right, we got Cobalion versus Jellicent once again on the lead. This time, I decide to stay in. I want to see if finessing this matchup is a bit better by going for Stone Edge first, soaking whatever charge move they have, and then going into Jellicent. Because the dangerous thing about Jellicent is it having energy and health. So instead, I'm going to let this go. We're going to let the Shadow Ball go through. We're now going to swap into our own Jellicent and get ahead on energy, and they're deciding to stay in. This tells me that they might be weak in the back, or they're trying to catch the charge move on Shadow Ball. So I'm going to go ahead and shield. And it was another Shadow Ball. That's always a dangerous thing when you swap into a matchup that clearly both Pokemon do super effective damage to each other. A good answer to that swap in is soaking that energy on the back end. So I was definitely concerned they were going to try to catch it like they would on Drapion, and that's why I didn't go for CMP tie with Shadow Ball. Alright, so we let the crunch go through here. We're just going to try to do as much neutral damage with Surf as we can. And look to come in with Cobalion and then farm down. So we're going to go ahead, just go for another Surf. And this is why Jellicent is so strong now. Just this raw neutral game and in losing matchups. But I decide to swap into Cobalion right away. I want to soak this out. I want to keep my own Jellicent alive. And I want to soak this Crunch, which is resisted. And now we draw back out the Jellicent. So I'm going to be able to get to a Stone Edge in time. But I'm like, that was a bit quick. This probably is going to be Surf. It is Surf, so unfortunately I do go down. And now I'm down Pokemon. I'm down shields. So this is tough. I got to come in with Clefable here and look to put in a lot of work. So I'm going to go ahead and go for a Meteor Mash. Now, if they obviously have a Steel in the back, it's, well, it's over. So we're going to go ahead and go for that Meteor Mash. We get a shield, which is very interesting. We got a shield from them. This tells me that they're weak. So I'm going to go ahead and shield myself, stop that Shadow Ball. I have my own Jellicent just in case to try to catch a charge move. But they go for another one right away, and I think this might just be a Surf. And it is. If it was a Shadow Ball, I would have looked to catch it. They swap into Drapion, which gives me a free farm down. I'm like, they are extremely weak in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and go for Meteor Mash here, and this was my mistake. I shouldn't have thrown the Meteor Mash here. I should have swapped to my own Jellicent. And now they have an Alolan Ninetales in the back. And the tough thing is I don't know if Clefable is bulky enough to survive a Weather Ball. So my potential win con is catching this charge move and hoping that it does enough damage. But I think I think that's a full charge damage. But unfortunately, the Alolan Ninetales is going to be able to farm me down. I do get to Shadow Ball in time. This isn't going to be enough damage to KO. But my hope and prayer now is that Clefable's health is enough to survive a Weather Ball. But I don't think it is. I think if it was in the yellow, maybe. But now it's in the red. So obviously, throwing that Meteor, that second, I should have swapped into Jellicent to farm it down, right? But good game. All right, we got a shiny Rayquaza here on the lead. Very cool to see, but we do resist the charge move, or the fast move here, and likely the charge move of Breaking Swipe. And we can easily go for a Stone Edge in this matchup. So I'm not too concerned about the debuffs. It honestly doesn't matter. Rayquaza is very glassy, so any super effective damage that's relatively hard-hitting, like Stone Edge, puts in work. So we can farm down. I can easily let the next one go through as well. And because there is a Rayquaza, we obviously got to be prepared for a Steel type in the back. So there's going to be a Swampert. So I'm going to save Cobalion and swap into my Jellicent here, hoping to draw out a Steel, but let's see what they decide to do. Now, they did build up to Earthquake. I will let it go. And it is going to be that Earthquake. And now they're still deciding to stay in, so I'm going to go ahead and start Surf spamming right here. If they're deciding to stay in this long, they might be weak in the back. So I want to just try to put consistent pressure instead of trying to land a Shadow Ball. Now this Hydro Cannon is not going to be enough to KO, so I can let this go through. But here comes actually a Togekiss, which is very interesting because Shadow Ball now can do a lot of damage, but we will see the Clefable put in work in this end game. Because I can easily, remember I have all that energy on Cobalion still for Swampert, and I can easily bring in the Clefable here for the Togekiss. And I think Clefable now is the best Fairy type Pokemon in this meta. Yes, it doesn't have Charm, but it has coverage. It has Meteor Mash and it has Moonblast. It doesn't have Steel coverage, right? Maybe like a Grandbull with close combat, but Grandbull is also not as tanky. It's more glassy. So I think the combination here, as long as you pair it with Pokemon that can handle Steel types, like a Cobalion and a Jellicent, you're going to see a lot of work put in with Clefable. So now we see the Swampert come in. We're going to go for Meteor Mash. They decide to go for the Hydro Cannon, and I think my win con is throwing the Meteor Mash here, or shielding, throwing the Meteor Mash, and then making them throw again, because they shouldn't be able to build up to back-to-back, but I decided to swap out right away because I did remember that I actually had a ton of loaded energy, so I will go for Sacred Swords here, and that is going to be a good battle, very well played. Sometimes in battle, I'm sure happens to you guys too, you forget how much energy you have, so you make a decision, but then you remember, you know what, I actually had a ton of energy. Maybe saving the shield for Cobalion was the better plan. But overall, this was a really fun team, very strong. Cobalion, Clefable, and Jellicent. Now, if you guys saw my Jellicent's, I'll put it back to the beginning. If you guys saw my Jellicent's combat power, it's not maxed out as well. Jellicent is an XL Pokemon. Mine is not maxed out. And my Clefable is more higher IVs, but still XL. It's like 41.5 or 42. I powered it up a couple times. And then Cobalion obviously is a raid Pokemon. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And like always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.